The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Pastor Zack. Happy to host for you. And as you know, if you follow the podcast, that this is Monday's episode where we are unpacking our Sunday sermon, and we are going through our series, Lessons from the Legends, this summer, where we're switching around who's preaching every week. And this Sunday, we are absolutely blessed and honored to hear from Pastor Bryanna, our youth pastor. So let's give it up for Pastor Bryanna. Welcome in, my friend.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome. We're so excited that you're here, and very stoked to unpack your message. Because as we'll hear who it is here in a minute, this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. It's just such a cool, unique story about how it all pans together and the idea of the bravery that came from this story. And so tell us, my friend, as we unpack, who are we talking about today?
We are talking about none other than Esther.
Esther. Talk about Esther.
Not about Esther today, no.
I love it. Well, just let's dig in, my friend.
Yeah.
Let's dig in.
Sounds good.
Start from the top. What are we looking at? What are we looking at in this story here?
Yeah. So I guess we can kind of approach this for people that aren't familiar with the story of Esther. So kind of get a little bit of background for us. So this starts hundreds of years after God has rescued his people from Egypt. And because of their disobedience, the Jewish people, they're sort of displaced. And they'd been conquered, taken into exile. So many of these people live far from their original home, and we are in the Persian Empire. So that's kind of like where it's taken place. And Persian Empire is pretty big. It stretched for far and wide, very big huge empire, and had a lot of money. The king was really wealthy, a lot of power. And so that's kind of where we start off. So we're starting off with a king named Xerxes. And King Xerxes had a lot and pride in himself. He was, so
he thought he was hot.
He did. He knew who he was, and he loved it. He loved himself. So he holds this big banquet. It spans from 180 days. And then following that, there's another 7-day feast. So nonstop partying,
right?
Which is crazy
to
think
a little
about.
Wild.
Yeah. And because he's just like so cool, he wants everybody to know his wife is cool too. So he's like, my wife's a babe. Like, come here, babe. Come here, Queen Vashti. Come. Like, I want to show you off, you know? And she refuses. She's obviously like upset and like valid.
Like, exactly.
Okay.
I am not a trophy for you to
right. Yeah. So his advisors are like, we can't have this. We can't have other women taking her examples. So they're like, we got to get her out. So she's kicked out. She's no longer queen. And so they do this kingdom-wide search for the next queen. There were different qualifications. You had to be a virgin and a few other things. But essentially, this was like a mandated order. So these women that fell into this category, they didn't really have a choice. Like, they had to be a part of this, like...
That's so crazy.
And it's honestly, it was sort of like a beauty pageant in today's time. Like, they went through strenuous beauty treatments and stuff, which is crazy. It was like a 12-month process.
Oh my gosh.
And Esther is the main character of our story, which we'll get into. So she was mandated into this. And a little bit about Esther. She's a Jewish girl. She was an orphan. Her parents died when she was young. And so she was taken in by her cousin Mordecai. So he becomes like a father to her. And, they hear about this mandate. He sends her off. He's like, okay, like, you're going to go do this. Right. And something about Esther is she was very beautiful. If you're familiar, like, with the story, she's very beautiful. And she kind of had favor right off the bat going through this process. And she kind of works her way up the ranks in the kingdom queen search, and after the 12 months of beauty treatments, she goes before the king, and he was like, she's the one. And so she becomes queen. So that's kind of where we're starting off with, like,
such a wild thing.
I know.
Like,
it's crazy.
Like, there's one part of me that's kind of like, oh, it's an honor to be part of this, like I fit the criteria, but then the other half is like, now I'm being forced to and especially if this king has the reputation, right? Like, if he's prideful and like boastful enough, like this probably gotten out, right?
Oh yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
It's like, what am I about to get into? Like,
I know.
Am I going to be the next trophy that's just being showed off? Like, what a weird dynamic of emotions.
Right. And you don't it doesn't explain what she's feeling. So you do wonder, you're like, is she excited about this? Or is she, because like on one hand, she'll become queen, she'll be in a life of comfort, you know, she starting off like orphaned, Jewish, like, you know, not the best of life to come into, but you know, but on the other hand, like you said, is she like, I don't really want to do, and who knows, like this king could have been like 80. She's
exactly.
like 20, you know, you don't know. So,
talks about how beautiful Esther was, but doesn't talk about Xerxes. Yeah. It's a very valid point.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Wild. So they go through, she becomes queen. And then what happens after this? She's got favor. Sorry, I'm jumping around here too.
No, you're good. Yeah. So she becomes queen, and because she's Jewish, they're keeping this a secret. So Mordecai is not able to stay in the palace with her. So he lives outside nearby the palace gates. So he would like kind of hang around the palace gates a lot. And he overhears a plot between two guards to kill the king. And so he goes and tells her, and she tells the king, and then the guards are executed. So that's important to keep in mind further on. And then we're introduced to a man named Haman, who is the bad guy. He's the villain of our story. So he was sort of honored by the king, and essentially what happened was everybody had to bow down to Haman. But Mordecai, being a man of faith, we're assuming this, it doesn't explicitly say why, but he refused to bow down to Haman. And so Haman, obviously upset by this, he's like, need to like kill this guy off. But then he finds out he's Jewish. And so then that's what causes, he gets even more mad. So he's like, we're going to wipe out all the Jews. And so there is like sort of a decree put into place to like kill off all the Jewish people. And so Mordecai finds out. Esther is like living her little queen life, has no idea. She's like in the castle, like living, you know, whatever, doing her thing. So Mordecai sends for somebody, informs her, and it's like, hey, your people are about to die. And like,
that's so crazy.
Don't think you're safe from this either. Like you're Jewish too, you know? So it's kind of like, so yeah, that's like kind of where we get to the turning point of things. So
yeah, that is so crazy. Like to me, it's so wild. Like one, looking at this character, Haman, right? So he gets appointed like to his level of power, I guess, if you will. And what amount of pride and selfishness and evil you have to have inside of you that's like, hey, I'm not even the king. Like I'm under the king, but like, hey bro, can you do me a favor and like make people bow to me too?
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, just the amount of power hungriness you have to have to like make that a part of your life. And then looking at Mordecai, you know, I mean, I can only imagine that if he is a strong Jewish person, you know, and he believes in God and he believes in, you know, the ways of the Jewish culture and customs, like, you know, not only is it like a slap in the face to have to bow to somebody, but like legit against your religion. And I mean, how do I even want to put this? Like, the amount of nuance and like balance that they would have to have in this story. It's like, when I'm Jewish, so that's a strike against me. Now I'm trying to do what I know is right for what I believe and not bow down to this guy. But in not bowing down to this guy, now I have to like spill my secret.
Yeah.
Like, now I have to let you know, like, well, you know, I'm not going to do this because. But then go back to Haman, right? So not only are you so prideful and now have this level, well, I'll get there in a minute, to think you have this level of authority, right? To where you're like, not only do I not like this guy, but like, now this is my excuse to wipe out all Jews. Like, and then, sorry, my brain is just, this is why I love this story so much, because there's so many layers to it. So then you go back to Haman, right? If you're finding out like, okay, now all the Jews are going to be killed because of my actions. Like, I didn't bow and like, okay, yeah, do what you got to do to me. But almost like that hero complex of like, you know, I'm not going to bow. And then, well, whatever they do to me is fine. And it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to kill you and all the Jews.
Right.
So it's like, there's so many layers and levels to the severity of the situation. And one of the reasons I love this story too, and you know, we'll get to the second half of it in the second half of the story, right? But one of the things that really blows my mind when I look at how this kind of story could affect us today, and it's going to step on people's toes here a little bit, but that's what we love to do.
Yeah.
How many times I hear, in our culture, in our day, it's like, well, it's really hard to be a Christian because of like the way people are going to look at me, or okay, for example, I'll share a story, personal story. When Kristen and I first moved up here to take the job here at Shepherd, we didn't have a house, so we were renting in a neighborhood. I won't dox the neighborhood, but let's just say it wasn't very Christian friendly neighborhood. And so we didn't really like make, it's not like you move into a neighborhood and be like, I'm a Christian, everybody, I'm a pastor, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
We just got to know our neighbors. We just made connections with them, and our kids played together, and it was all good. And we were building these really cool relationships. And then I got invited. It was kind of funny. I got invited to, apparently they have a monthly whiskey tasting night in the neighborhood for all the dads.
Oh, okay.
And they invited me, like, you should come to this thing we do. And I didn't know what it was. It was just like the dads hang out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that'd be sweet. I get to know these guys. And so it was like the night before, and he's like, don't forget, bring your favorite whiskey. And I'm just like,
What?
Oh, it's that kind of night. So like I show up empty-handed.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, I'm not going to drink.
Yeah.
And so they started asking me, like, well, why aren't you drinking? Like, that's what this whole thing is. And I'd be like, well, I just don't really drink. It's not my thing. And, I'm a pastor. And like the second I said that, it was like, soup. Okay. Wall put up.
Ooh,
I was instantly written off, like all those connections we had made with our neighbors. And if I'm being honest, there was a moment I was like, man, like sometimes being a Christian's hard. And I kind of, got into that pity party of like, oh, well, I was doing what I was told to do and share my faith. But no, these people don't like me. All that to say, compared to the severity of what was happening in this story, and Mordecai Mordecai still stood up for what he believed in the face of like actual persecution. Which is wild to me. And all of this is happening. Mordecai did a good thing. Like he's still looking out for his king. He's still defending him. A lot is going on. A lot is going on. So correct me if I'm wrong. Have I skipped around, or are we good to...
Yeah, we're good.
Good to stop it for today? Or are we good to keep moving?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're good.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I don't want to screw up this story. No. Okay, sweet. So what we do know is... Yeah, let's leave that cliffhanger. So we'll go on just a little bit more. So long story short, how we just described, Mordecai shares this news, doesn't bow down to Haman, and Haman gets mad. And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like Haman kind of twists things a little bit to where like he wasn't 100% clear or transparent about like what was going on and how severe things were going to be. And on top of all of this, the king still doesn't know that Esther is a Jew. Yeah. And so all this is happening, all this is plotting, and they're trying to figure out like, okay, what's next? And so we'll share a few more things before we move on, because I want to leave it at what we talked about earlier. An epic cliffhanger. So I'll let you take it on. I'm looking at like page 6 here. And what verse are we in here? So this is talking about when Mordecai learned all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, ashes, and went out to the city wailing bitterly. Went as far as the king's gate, but no one clothed in sackcloth was allowed to enter it. At every province to which the edict order of the king came, there was great mourning. So at this point, word got out. Yeah. People are freaking out to the point where they're all mourning. And eventually Mordecai sends word explaining Haman's plan. So all that to say, I'm just catching up myself. Yeah. So word is getting out. The Jews are freaking out. They're mourning. They're in sackcloth. They're freaking out. But Mordecai recognizes that Esther might have an opportunity here. Do you want to take it from there with what that opportunity could look like? Yeah, for sure. So Mordecai, kind of a light bulb moment. He's like, okay, Esther is queen. The only person that could stop this from happening is the king himself. And so he's like, I need to approach Esther. So he approaches her and he's kind of like, hey, like, can you go before the king and plead for your people? Like plead
like, for us.
Right.
And she's a little bit hesitant at first because she had it, like, first of all, you can't approach a king without, like, he has to summon you.
Right.
You can literally be put to death.
Right.
So that's one. And then two, she hadn't been requested by the king in 30 days. So she hadn't like seen him in 30 days. So like,
which is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just like, and so she's like, oh gosh, like if I do that, like I literally could be killed.
Yeah.
But Mordecai follows up and he's like, do you not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape? And who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. So just a classic, everybody that's familiar, for such a time as this.
Right.
And yeah, this is kind of like the turning point where things in the story, it's the climax, things are heating up, and it's like, this is when things really start to shift and we see things happen.
Yeah.
So
I am going to steal something from your notes here because I love the way you said this.
Yeah.
Is, maybe Esther becoming queen wasn't a coincidence. Maybe Esther becoming queen had nothing to do with giving her a blessed and comfortable life. I love that you pointed that out because so many times I feel like, when God blesses us and we often can just take that as like, oh, cool. Well, like I earned this, or like I'm finally getting what I deserve. When in reality, maybe what God is doing is blessing us and putting us in a higher position or providing us with more provision financially, time, whatever, resources, and not to just make us comfortable or like make us the blessed ones, but to be putting us into a position where we can have more influence for his kingdom. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so I think what you said was really important. And then we'll cut off to the major cliffhanger here. Because this is what I love. I just love this story.
Yes.
Like the more I dig into the word and like I picture things in my head, like movie status, right? So you had just mentioned that like you can't just walk up to the king. Yeah. Even if you're his wife.
Yeah.
Like you can't just show up to the point where there is a high probability that like you'll just get killed.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's like really depends on his mood.
Right.
Like you could be in a really bad mood and you just show up and he's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And so Esther's in this position of leadership and Mordecai's like, hey, like you might be the only hope that we have.
Yeah.
So now all this pressure is put back on her. And she's like, well, I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
And what is that verse that says,
if I perish, I perish. Yeah.
I mean, what a bold statement.
Yeah.
Like,
in the face of death, like I can't imagine that level of confidence, like to just literally be like, okay, like if I die, I die. Like, got to do it. I have to do, it's really admirable for sure.
It's crazy. So she approaches the opportunity. And that is where we're going to leave off to leave you hanging because
what happens?
If you don't know this story, we're going to find out tomorrow what it actually looks like. So again, this is one of my favorite stories in scripture just because it is. There's so many highs, there's so many lows, and there's so many twists and turns. And I feel like that's, everybody's story, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that I love from what we were just talking about and the takeaway of all this is like, maybe God doesn't put us in a comfortable position just for comfort's sake or maybe a higher level position. He could be doing it for him to use us for his kingdom. And so maybe that's something for us to all take a look at today. Maybe God has put us where we're at to be used more, but that's only for you to decide. But make sure you come back tomorrow because the story is not over. Have a great day.
This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.